What's going on, guys? We got a lot to talk about today. People are losing their ever-loving mind right now. There's a lot of information coming out about Kamala Harris stealing Donald Trump's policies, and the level of desperation from the Democrats is really reaching a level of epic proportion. In fact, we had already heard about Kamala Harris stealing Donald Trump's no tax on tips policy, right? Stealing this from J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. However, Kamala Harris has no limits. In fact, she's recently come out saying that she now is supporting a border wall. Guys, we're talking about Kamala Harris, the border czar, and now she's supporting a border wall. Now, for those of you guys who might not remember, there are a lot of Democrats that watch this channel. Some of you guys may have completely forgotten how Kamala Harris used to feel about a border wall, but for those of you guys who don't remember, here's what she used to say.
This issue is about a vanity project for this president. Right. And it is a problem of his own making. Right. And listen, when I travel this country, folks have plenty enough problems that they need their president to focus on. Instead of a wall. On the subject of transnational gangs, let's be perfectly clear. The president's medieval vanity project is not going to stop them. We cannot continue to have an administration and a president of the United States who puts his vanity projects ahead of the needs of the people of our country. Let me be very clear. I'm not going to vote for a wall under any circumstances, and I do support border security, and if we want to talk about that, let's do that.
Wow, guys, I really can't make this up. The level of desperation from the Democrats is literally astounding. Look at it. Harris flip-flops on building the border wall. Harris imitates Donald Trump with border wall ad, but backs softer bipartisan immigration policy. And guys, you can't make this stuff up. By the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. Guys, this is coming from the New York Post. Look at this. Harris imitates Donald Trump with border wall ad, but backs softer bipartisan immigration bill. Preposterous and false claim. I mean, these are not just allegations. This is literally playing out as we speak, guys. Vice President Kamala Harris is playing the old wall game. The Democratic presidential nominee raised eyebrows in recent days after her campaign pushed out a commercial showing off the U.S.-Mexico border wall, which Kamala Harris herself has attacked in past years as being un-American and a waste of resources when it was repitched by Republican nominee Donald Trump. So the very same person, guys, that Kamala Harris is attacking, she is now stealing the plan. She's stealing the policies of Donald Trump. It is absolutely amazing, okay? At last week's Democratic National Convention, the ex-senator from California undercut her seemingly newfound hardline stance on immigration by saying she wanted Congress to resurrect a bipartisan border bill that earmarked almost $1 billion, $650 million to construct barriers and shore up old ones, but stopped short of realizing the massive reinforced wall promised by Donald Trump for more than a decade. This is like the Democrats are so two-faced. The Democrats, and I'm not saying like all Democrats. There are actually some good Democrats out there, but the Democrats that are running for election right now, I'm really specifically talking about Kamala Harris right now. The level of desperation from her and Joe Biden is absolutely unbelievable. Check this out. Quote, "After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border." This is what Kamala Harris, 59 years old, told the delegates at the United Center in Chicago. Quote, "Last year, President Joe Biden and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades." She is literally, guys, getting quoted gaslighting the American people at the DNC. This is absolutely atrocious, and anyone supporting Kamala Harris should be offended that Kamala Harris thinks that people are dumb enough to believe that the bull that she's spewing right now. I mean, we have her on tape. She's been caught numerous times condemning Donald Trump's plan. She's never even visited the border, or at least not the segment of the border where the crisis is taking place. And as if that wasn't enough, guys, the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, Joe Biden administration is not done coming after. Donald Trump is now being attacked again by Jack Smith. So, breaking news, guys. Jack Smith just filed a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. Now, again, Donald Trump had already considered this to be a win in the books. This was the classified documents case that was taking place not too far from his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida. And ultimately, here it is. Because they could not win the first go around, they're now trying again with a different one. All right? Corruption at its finest. So check this out. The United States District Court for the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, basically Washington, D.C. You got the United States of America versus Donald Trump as the defendant. Violations, conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's one count. Second count, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Third count is the obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And the fourth count is conspiracy against rights. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into this here, guys, because we're seeing all sorts of information coming out about this here. Special counsel Jack Smith revises Donald Trump's election indictment to address immunity rulings. Trump indicted a second time in the election subversion case brought by special counsel Jack. Let's see what CNN is talking about here. Special counsel, because CNN always make it so interesting. So we got to see what CNN's talking about. Let's just see how they're going to spin this one here. Special counsel files reworked indictment against Donald Trump in January 6 case. Okay, so special counsel Jack Smith on Tuesday, this is just hours ago, filed a superseding indictment in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump, slimming down the allegations against the 2024 presidential nominee in light of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. Okay, now get this: prosecutors have not dropped any of the 4 charges that they initially brought against the former president. However, so they're not dropping any of the charges here. However, the newly retooled indictment has carved out some of Trump's alleged conduct, including allegations about the attempts to use the Justice Department to promote his false claims of election fraud, is what they're saying. Now, guys, Donald Trump's polls are exceedingly strong, okay? And now we cannot forget the fact that Kamala Harris is still largely benefiting from this honeymoon phase that she's currently still on. Letter about Facebook censorship is not what it seems. Okay, so they're saying that this week Mark Zuckerberg sent Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio a letter outlining how the Biden administration pressured his company to censor free speech on Facebook, officially, specifically misinformation about COVID-19. The letter also made reference to Hunter Biden's laptop and Zuckerberg's lack of plans to spend money on the election. This sounds bad, but they're saying none of this information is new. Interesting. Well, they go on to say that it's interesting that Zuckerberg decided to dive into the free speech snake pit this week. It's also not surprising that Republicans who have been on a book banning spree at schools nationwide are propping up old facts as if they were new revelations in their ongoing quest to blame Democrats for their censorship. It's election season and questioning reality is part of the fun. Well, so here we have, Vox. I don't know how many of you guys read much on Vox, but it definitely looks like Vox is trying to spin this thing as if the Democrats had nothing to do with censorship. Now, I personally have experienced censorship. You guys can comment down below. Let me know if you've experienced any type of censorship. But censorship is real, guys. And anyone who wants to argue that literally has just had nothing to say, because censorship is real on many of these different social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter at one point, to some extent Google, you name it. Censorship is real. Fox News over here, guys, says Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg admits he was part of the Biden-Harris censorship scheme. You have been warned, America. Wow. But her poll numbers and her momentum is certainly dwindling. And this is why we're seeing, time after time, we're seeing more and more attacks against Donald Trump here. This is why Jack Smith, who has been quite quiet for the last several months after the Supreme Court ruling basically providing immunity to Donald Trump, this is why Jack Smith is now coming back out of the woodworks. You got to understand, Joe Biden placed Jack Smith's boss by the name of Merrick Garland into position, who then Merrick Garland positioned Jack Smith to go after Donald Trump. Now, Biden denies any engagement or wrongdoing in terms of sicking the DOJ after Donald Trump, but I beg to differ. This is just blatantly obvious. It's almost as obvious as the gaslighting of Kamala Harris pretending to be concerned about the border wall that she has had nothing to do with since she's been in office. She's been in office 4 years, guys. She's done nothing for the border except for make the border worse, except for eliminating the border and ultimately increasing crime, the fact that there's been such an influx in people into our country, this has driven down wages for Americans because there's so many more people here illegally who are willing to work for nothing and not pay any taxes. That's a whole nother story. Not going to get into that one. But this is huge, guys. So you've got Kamala Harris desperately trying to win the votes of the American people, stealing Donald Trump's ideas, stealing Donald Trump's policies, condemning his policies when she came into office, and then later, now that she's in office, trying to remain in office, now she steals his policies and portrays Donald Trump's policies as her own. Guys, you can't make this stuff up. By the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. Let's look at this here. Mark Zuckerberg, who we've talked about this before. Mark Zuckerberg was another person who basically under the influence of the Biden administration was involved in censorship of the American people, guys. The Biden administration came to Mark Zuckerberg and basically said, hey, we can't have the American people, taking advantage of their First Amendment right to free speech. We have to shut them up. So this is where Mark Zuckerberg comes into play. And essentially, and let's take a look at it here. We have it on, let's look at Vox. So Vox says Mark Zuckerberg's dirty game of politics here. So check this out. Mark Zuckerberg's sudden regret only came after his company fought for years to conceal the evidence of its work with the government to censor opposing views. Zuckerberg was finally compelled to release the documents by House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio and the House Judiciary Committee. Goes on to say, now forced to admit what many of us have long alleged Mark Zuckerberg is really, really sorry. Well, I don't know how sorry he is, or is he just sorry that he got caught? So anyway, but check this out. Mark Zuckerberg stayed silent as Elon Musk was viciously attacked by anti-free speech figures in Congress and the media. He was fully aware of his own company's similar conduct, but stayed silent. That's pretty messed up. And Facebook and Twitter, they were both Silicon Valley companies. So you got your boy Mark Zuckerberg staying quiet while his colleague, or I don't know if he sees him as a colleague or a competitor, Elon Musk, is getting destroyed by these anti-free speech figures, and essentially Mark Zuckerberg just stay quiet. So let me know what you guys think about that. I think that's pretty messed up. And if anything, they could have banded together and helped the American people to be able to restore their ability to have free speech. So the article says, I believe the government pressure was wrong. I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. So guys, I don't know what Mark Zuckerberg was dealing with at the time. I don't know if he was threatened not to talk about this, but it definitely does seem that Mark Zuckerberg is now coming out and admitting the involvement of the Biden administration with regard to censorship, this whole censorship scheme from the Biden-Harris administration. And if you think that you've been censored or been put in Facebook jail or anything like that, this is nothing, guys. You let Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get in office and it's game over. So those words from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg came in this week with an admission in a letter that his company Facebook did yield to pressure from the Biden-Harris administration to censor American citizens on a wide array of topics. Now, on the Vox, they were talking about COVID-19, but guys, mark my words, the censorship was not limited to COVID-19 whatsoever. And they're admitting it here, that this covered a wide array of subjects. The censorship is real and it's still going on today. They're trying to remove your First Amendment, guys. They're trying to remove the Second Amendment and basically all of your rights. They don't want a border wall. Kamala Harris wants to completely change America, unfortunately for the worse. And, you know, MAGA gets a really bad rap for how the Democrats have attempted to rebrand the meaning of making America great again. And they're trying to make MAGA sound like a dictatorship. It's a bunch of racists. And, you know, they're trying to do a horrible smear job on Donald Trump, making him appear to be a racist. But, guys, this is what's happening. Anyway, guys. There's a lot more news that's coming out, and I cannot wait to continue to share this information with you guys. So if you haven't already, hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for sharing this video on Facebook, Twitter, all sorts of social media. Thank you for sharing it with your friends, and I'll see you guys on the next one.